Well, Bianca, Russian forces are still bombing neighborhoods around Kiev, according to the Ukrainian authorities. This just hours after Moscow pledged to scale back its military operations around the capital. They also say they are withdrawing from the areas surrounding Kiev. Now, here's some new video showing the damage in northern Ukraine today. This was done by the Russian artillery. President Zelensky is asking the NATO alliance for more weapons to fight back. He also wants Europe to close its seaports to Russia. Meanwhile, President Biden, for his part, expressed doubt that Russia was actually withdrawing.
I don't read anything into it until I see what their actions are. We'll see if they follow through on what they're suggesting. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to keep strong the sanctions. We're going to continue to provide the Ukrainian military with their capacity to defend themselves.
And today, the Biden administration is also trying to set the record straight on exactly how the U.S. is assisting Ukrainian troops. After President Biden's mixed messaging overseas on the war effort, here is Pentagon spokesman John Kirby responding to Biden's admission that, yes, the U.S. was training Ukrainian troops in Poland.
There is, there's some liaising going on as the Ukrainians go into Poland, for instance, and they are we're transposing shipments of material to them, and so there's some general liaising going on in that regard, and that's what the president was referring to.
Now, military analysts say Russia's high command has probably reached the conclusion that the Kremlin forces will not be able to seize control of the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. But they say that does not mean Moscow is making good on its pledge to scale back military operations near the city. Newsmax Chief White House Correspondent James Rosen bringing us reaction to all of this today from the Biden administration. Good afternoon, James.
Bianca, good afternoon to you. President Biden, NATO, and the European allies always stress their great unity in the Russia-Ukraine war. But the man at the center of the attack hasn't always been all that impressed with Western resolve. That man, embattled Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, spoke with President Biden shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern Time today. In his address to Congress 2 weeks ago, you will recall Zelensky closed by expressing the wish that President Biden would be the leader of the world, not just the U.S. Then on Sunday, after Mr. Biden had made his controversial comment about Vladimir Putin not remaining in power, Zelensky, in a video address, chided Western nations for playing ping pong about who and how should hand over jets. The Ukrainian leader added if only those who have been thinking for 31 days on how to hand over dozens of jets and tanks had 1% of the courage of the defenders of Mariupol. A readout on today's call still to come. New satellite imagery from Maxar Technologies, the Colorado-based intelligence firm, taken yesterday show the wide swath of destruction in Mariupol. The southeastern port city is one military analysts believe Russian forces will likely capture within days. At a news conference with Singapore's Prime Minister yesterday, President Biden took a we'll see approach to Russia's claims of reduced operations near the capital, Kiev.
I had a meeting with the heads of state of our 4 allies in NATO, France, Germany, the United States, and Great Britain. And there seems to be a consensus that let's just see what they have to offer. We'll find out what they do. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to keep strong the sanctions. We're going to continue to provide the Ukrainian military with their capacity to defend themselves.
Striking a tougher, more skeptical tone was White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield making her debut at the press briefing yesterday.
I think we should be clear-eyed about the reality of what's happening on the ground, and no one should be fooled by Russia's announcements. We believe any movement of forces from around Kyiv is a redeployment and not a withdrawal. And the world should be prepared for a major offensive against other areas of Ukraine. Everyone should expect that we're going to continue to see attacks across Ukraine.
We will hear remarks from President Biden 90 minutes from now in the South Court Auditorium on his administration's latest moves to contain the coronavirus. Bianca.
We'll be watching for that. James Rosen at the White House. Thank you.
Ера вугілля, нафти нанесли навколишньому середовищу, нашій планеті в цілому дуже серйозні шкоди. Зелені технології, зелена енергетика стали логічною, справедливою відповіддю на цей виклик.
That's Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They're pushing for more green energy production in Europe. Also talking about the end of fossil fuels. Zelensky says Russia's aggression against his country is an argument to accelerate the green transformation on the continent. But isn't this how the rest of Europe became so dependent on Russian and oil gas? Let's welcome in now Sebastian Gorka, former deputy assistant to President Trump and host of the Gorka Reality Check here on Newsmax. Seb, great to have you back with us.
Thanks for having me, John.
All right, so, Zelensky's talking to a lot of folks. He's saying a lot of things now. Does he really believe this, or is he just kind of saying this because this is what the folks in Europe want to hear?
I think, there's two probable scenarios for why he said what he said. Number one, he is a man whose nation has been invaded. It is occupied by murderous Russian troops under the control of a KGB killer. So he needs help as much as possible from the richer, free nations around him. So, maybe he's trying to ingratiate himself with those audiences and say, hey, I'm on your side when it comes to energy. How about giving me 1% of your weapons so my guys can actually fight for our independence? That's one likely scenario. The second is, if you know the energy crisis of the region, countries like Ukraine, like Hungary next door, which is a NATO nation, don't have their own energy assets. They don't have the fracking, the oil fields that we do. And as a result, when Russia wants to turn off the gas supply to those nations, they can actually kill millions of people because the heating oil requirements for these nations come predominantly from Russia. So if you want to avoid being held hostage in the future by Russia, and you don't have the blessings of the oil and gas that nations like America or the UK or Norway have, this is probably the long-term answer for Ukraine. I would add, with one proviso, the really clean energy that will provide energy independence for these countries is nuclear. And look at what happened in the last 30 days in Germany. Germany had shut down half of its nuclear reactors. The Greens that were running that ministry said, we're going to shut down all of our nuclear power. With the war in Ukraine, that was all rapidly reversed. And the new chancellor says, put those nuclear power plants back online. So Zelensky is right. You don't want to be held hostage by killers like Putin.
Yeah, you mentioned nuclear. Not enough is talked about when it comes to nuclear energy and the development. This is something that is desperately needed across Europe, but they don't like to talk about it, as you indicated before. And we're not against green energy, but at the expense of fossil fuels. We've seen the dangers of that here. And the question, I guess, is, does Zelensky want to be more like Germany has been, or do they want to be more like the United States and energy dependent? Maybe depending on where the energy comes from.
Well, it's tough because that last scenario, unless they suddenly find massive oil reserves under the territory of Ukraine, really isn't an option for them. This is why we are so blessed. When we were in the White House, in the Trump administration, we unleashed the oil industry in America. We allowed the fracking and the oil exploration on public lands, which meant for the first time in our history, John, we were net exporters. We had too much energy. We were selling it to others. In comes Biden, shuts down the XL Keystone pipeline, opens up the blockade against the Nord Stream 2 for Russia, and then Russia suddenly becomes what? The fourth biggest importer of oil to America. Yeah. That's insanity.
And maybe I shouldn't say energy independent. That might be too much to ask for Ukraine, but not so energy dependent on a bad country like Russia. So I rephrase that. But I also wanted to get your take on Biden's disclosure that the U.S. is in fact training Ukrainian troops in Poland. Then you heard John Kirby there trying to confirm it, transposing, liaising. I don't care what words he uses. There's no real way to sugarcoat what the president did. Here's the president at that press conference on Monday.
I was talking to the troops. We were talking about helping train the troops that are the Ukrainian troops that are in Poland. That's what the context. I sat there with those guys for a couple hours.
That was after he told everyone that they would see certain things inside Ukraine, talking to the 82nd Airborne there. What's your take on all this, Seb?
Well, I'm just glad you played that clip of that disgrace to the naval uniform, Kirby, because I'm going to use it on my radio show in a few hours' time on America First. That guy is a press secretary. He's a spokesman. That was like, they were liaising. They were liaison. I mean, come on. What are you hiding, Kirby? What is the DOD really doing? Or did your boss let the cat out of the bag when he said what he said extemporaneously when he was with the 82nd Airborne in Poland. So this is a disaster for the DoD. The DoD's, on the one hand, more concerned about gender transitions and putting fake women in uniform, and then they can't be honest about what America is doing with Ukrainian fighters. The Ukrainians are fighting their 1776. If we're helping them, that's great. But don't lie about it, Kirby.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to lie about it, you got to be better than that, too. And, when you use words like liaising and transposing, any member of the press, that should raise massive red flags. Another important topic for you, Seb. Yesterday, Congressman Matt Gaetz, he entered Hunter Biden's laptop, at least parts of it, into the congressional record. But there was also this exchange where he was grilling the assistant director of the FBI's cyber division about the laptop. Here he is.
What you're telling me right here is that as the assistant director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
I mean, I would think that if the president's son, who does international business deals, referencing the now president with the Chinese, with Ukrainians, I mean, have you assessed whether or not the Hunter Biden laptop gives Russia the ability to harm our country?
Sir, again, we can do this back and forth for the next couple of minutes. I don't have any information about the Hunter Biden laptop.
That Hunter Biden laptop inside the FBI said that is one hot potato, isn't it?
Kudos to Matt. That was superb. That assistant director of the FBI should be taken out of the FBI. He should be escorted out by security. If he had a scintilla of honor in his soul, he would resign right now. The fact that the FBI has the laptop of the disgraced drug addict son of the current commander-in-chief in their possession for 3 years, sat on it as it was being censored by Twitter, by Facebook, by the mainstream media. And now the guy in charge, the assistant director, says, I don't know what it is. This is either a clown show or it's a cover-up. And I think it's the latter, John.
Yeah. It certainly stinks to high heavens, and we're following this story very closely, as I know you are as well. Sebastian Gorka, we'll see you on the radio and on the weekends here on Newsmax TV. Always great to talk to you.
God bless you and the viewers. Thanks, John.
Hey guys, it's Rob Carson. Experts are warning the current 40-year inflation high will only get worse. See how to protect your IRA with gold. Get a free info kit like this one at birchgold.com/Newsmax. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Just get your free info kit at birchgold.com/Newsmax.